This week in the field, a recap of the Oregon coastal adventure. Hey everyone, I'm Scott Davenport. Welcome to In the Field. Thanks for joining me today. So I'm going to do a recap of the Oregon coastal adventure. This is a workshop that I hosted in November along the Oregon coast, and just a few days ago as I record this. So everything is still fresh in my mind. Had a great group. Everybody had a good time. We got some good photos, and there were a few themes that kind of came out of the workshop. As I was traveling back home and thinking about how things went, and the first was really being nimble. So we had some weather needed to deal with. The forecasts changed continually. So heading into the workshop, it looked like a whole set of doom and gloom, and I'm happy to report that wasn't the case. But we had to be nimble and really make our decisions only a handful of hours in advance. There is some time needed to get to some of the locations, and you look at the weather charts and the maps and decide, yeah, we're going to go for this, and we head out. And for the most part, we made out very well. There were some situations where we dealt with a little bit of rain, but thankfully the way the Oregon coast worked is, we'd spit rain for a little bit, and then it would stop. We'd have these interesting clouds, and we'd go and shoot. And so maximizing those opportunities and staying nimble was a big deal. Another weather factor was the wind. It's very windy, especially on some of these overlooks where you're getting 20 and 30 mile an hour gusts. There was one evening in particular out on the beaches where the sand was skimming across the floor of the beach. And of course, flying around in the air too, and tough for the gear. You can't do lens changes and things like that. And I think we all left the beach with a little bit of the beach in our mouths, but it made for some very interesting photographs. You get these different types of leading lines that are made by the sand, as opposed to other natural things, or streams or rivers or wave crests and all those kind of things. So that was the first thing, was being nimble. Kind of leads into the second, dealing with weather. And I guess maybe a way to summarize it, if you're going someplace and you've got a set of weather conditions that might not be good, is making the best of what you have, and not shooting at sunrise and sunset all the time. That was another thing that we did to work around weather conditions, is we'd go out for 2/3 of a day and stop at various locations. If you've got interesting things in the clouds, that's going to make interesting photographs. One of the photographs that I took that was one of my favorites from the trip, it was midday. It's not a glorious sky, and that's okay. You find other things to shoot. And so those two things put together, it really made for a good workshop, because we did get a day where couldn't go out and shoot. It was just really soupy and rainy all the time. The sky is a big blanket of gray. That's not interesting for our cameras. And those are the days you work on your photos and you stay indoors and stay warm. The last theme, and this was something that I think was something that was more taught to me after seeing some of the photos of others, is looking beyond the large landscape. This is something I'm not as good as others that were on this workshop. They're really good at bringing either order to chaos or finding small interesting details. The closest that I came is probably I did a photo of a bench overlooking a landscape, and that's relatively cliche shot. I like the framing. I like the way the shot looks. But other folks on the workshop were finding, these interesting small little details, on a 10-minute walk down the path to, through the forest down to a beach, and they'd find these things and take shots of them. And so looking beyond the planned shot or the larger landscape, that was another cool theme that came out of the workshop. So I think the tip of the week is to not beholden yourself to landscape rules, where don't have to be sunrise and sunset to get a good landscape photo. It doesn't need to be a grand vista to be a good landscape photo. It can be different things. And I'm actually remembering there was one photo that I still have to process fully, where there was a small little, really just a branch, but the way it was reaching up out of the side of this hill, it looked like a like a small bonsai tree. And so getting a photo of that against a nice sky, that was pretty cool. So I like that one. So, those types of things where you don't necessarily, not even necessarily, don't hold yourself to these landscape rules that we hear. They're more guidelines than anything else. Much like everything in photography is a guideline and not a rule. Well, that is going to do it for this week's In the Field. And if you're curious, yes, I am fully planning on doing another workshop in Oregon in 2018, and probably the same time of year. I really like that November time along the coast. It's quieter, you have more of the beaches to yourselves, the skies are interesting, and if you're able to work with a little bit of rain, have a good time. So if you're interested in joining me on that, get on my mailing list if you're not already. That's how you'll hear about workshop first before they hit my website. It's always to my mailing list first. It's kind of my way of saying thanks for being a subscriber to my mailing list. And with that, until next time, my name's Scott Davenport, and happy shooting. Stop. Really good. Stop that. Bang, dinga bunga bunga.